The House.
I call the honourable member David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that was a very interesting speech from the previous minister about the history and some of the more private, I guess, natures of government and what actually went on at that time in the history of the Labor government that would have had some idea of the issue, but as the previous minister said, maybe not a full comprehension of the effects or how to actually deal with the situation at that time. And so I thank that member for her contribution, because a lot of New Zealanders did lose a lot of money, and they were ordinary New Zealanders that had put a lot of their life savings into those deposits. And to hear the history of what the government actually was looking at is very interesting, I'm sure, for those individuals and families as they'll be taking stock of what's actually happened to their personal financial situation. This bill is the last set in the series of bills and acts to deal with that very issue that both the minister that promoted the bill and also the previous speaker mentioned, and that is to create an environment where we have, to a certain extent, more rules and regulations around the nature of these kind of deposits, that being non-bank deposits, and this is the non-bank deposit takers bill. That does not mean also that all risk will be taken away from investors. As the previous speaker said, there's always the risk return element, which will be part of any investment decision, but the rules and regulations that we can use to tighten up that area of the finance market is something that is long overdue. When we look at this bill, it has a number of impacts in regard to the financial sector, and especially towards non-bank deposit takers. And first of all, it completes that regulation process, and it gives the Reserve Bank the power to remove directors and issue directions in certain circumstances. It can require non-bank deposit taker directors to notify the Reserve Bank if a director or senior officer triggers new prescribed suitability criteria. And the bank will have, the Reserve Bank that is, will have the power to remove those individuals. So that's quite an important power in the sense that there will be a notification and also a suitability criteria, and also the power to deal with that situation should it be required. This bill is expected to become effective on June 2013, 1 year after a transition period, to enable non-bank deposit takers to meet the new licensing rules. So there is certainly enough scope in there, one would expect, for those in the financial sector to meet the obligations and to be in a situation where they can adjust to the new regulations. The bill also introduces penalties for failing to comply with regulatory requirements. The offences will be graded according to their severity, up to a maximum fine of $2 million for an entity, and individual fines of up to $200,000 or 18 months and or 18 months imprisonment. So those are quite substantial fines and penalties, but this is a situation where you are dealing with individuals' savings as well, and so in some cases where there are large sums of money involved, those fines and penalties may be seen as justifiably large. The actual detail on the bill is something that I'm sure we will go through further in this House as it goes to select committee and the committee stages. But just to go through some of the key things again, that ability to remove directors is a major part of the bill. The ability to issue directions to non-bank deposit takers, associated persons and trustees is another very important part of it. Requiring the suitability of directors to be vetted by the Reserve Bank, And the Reserve Bank has the power to de-licence non-bank deposit takers in certain circumstances, and requires the consent of the Reserve Bank to be obtained for changes in ownership of non-bank deposit takers in certain circumstances. So it is a bill which will have a number of implications. It is there as a response to an issue that many New Zealanders have faced in recent years, and we look forward to this House debating and passing this bill in a spirit that will enable all New Zealanders to have a little bit more security going forward.
I call the